All right. So I'm hoping that you guys all have read the documents, both of the
Yep.
documents. Okay, great, great. Has anybody not read it? I guess
Yes, I haven't.
you have or you have not,
I haven't.
Marilyn.
I have not.
Okay. So what I would suggest, Marilyn, you take some time. Basically, you still have something to catch up. Okay. So, but just plan to go through these documents because these are important documents, project documentation, and we'll be start utilizing it next week. Okay, so
Okay.
you have about a week to catch up. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So sounds good. Um, so have you guys watched the video? Um, was it helpful for you guys?
Recording in progress. Yes. It was,
Yes.
yeah, because first time when we read the document, it was not, all the things were not clear. So the video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Great. So hopefully you guys have some understanding of the document. And now these are real. Yes. Go ahead.
I was asking if you're referring to the video in the email, or you mean a video of the previous?
No, video when we send out the homework, right? So is everybody getting my emails? First of all, I
Yes.
know one person missed it, but make sure you guys go through the emails that I'm sending. For the first session, I sent at least three emails. First email was for the homework, and it included the video reference as part of the homework email, and how you should be reading the document as well as what you need to do to understand uh, this requirements document. So just to take some time. All right, I think you guys still have time to catch up. But what we are planning to do today is we'll go through it, and then we'll answer any question that you have on these documents, and I'll let you guys review that document for another few days. Okay, so in the real life, you will be reading this type of documents at least 3 to 4 times before you actually start doing any work from the quality assurance standpoint. You have to understand these documents inside out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so that's the whole purpose of this exercise, and let's see what questions you guys have, so we can dive into those. Unless anybody else has anything else. Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so we will move on. Now, do you have a question on specific things? Let's do one thing. We'll go through page by page here and see what questions you have or what you did not understand, or anything like that, and we'll answer any questions or clarification. So
Okay.
just stop me if you don't understand anything that you did not understand or something like that. All right.
Sure.
So I think this problem statement should be clear to you guys. We already discussed this in the class.
Yes.
Does anybody has any question? If not, then we can move on to the next section. Okay, how about the assumptions and user constraint section?
Assumption.
Oh, the first one, that assumption and user.
Yeah, this particular section, does anybody have any question? So this section, what typically it describes, right? You're gonna see this this type of document in company. It depends on the company how they write it, and depends on the style of the business analyst, because business analyst typically owns this document, right? They are the ones actually working with the business or users, and they are collecting all the requirements for the software that needs to be built, and they are documenting them in some type of form so that the technical people and the QA folks can understand. All right. So in typical organization, they have some type of constraints, or some of the user requirements are kind of like organization specific. So here, A1 requirement, it says any application you built in the organization that needs to be accessible via internet. right? That's kind of like a constraint here they have laid out. So they are going to build the Arfloan as a web app, and it will be accessible over internet. So that's the constraint they are specifying here.
Okay.
Okay, that's the part of the A1.
I have a
Yes, go
question.
ahead.
On
Yes,
what
yes.
basis do they do this assumption? Like, how do they come out with this assumptions? User
Yeah. So
content.
certainly, I mean, so in the companies, right, like big companies nationwide, give you example. So they have generally enterprise architecture group. Okay, they oversee all the application architectures, and they understand the strategic direction of the company, where the company is going, and how the system should be built so that the system are scalable in the future, and they don't need to. So let's say you write the Arfloan today, and after 5 years the requirement changes or the business direction changes, and they have to rewrite the whole application. So that's kind of like a waste of money, right? So they understand. So they set the guideline for any new application that's going to be built for nationwide. And one of the guideline could be, hey, all the application must be accessible via internet. Okay, so that means they have to build something. They have to build, right, create the web applications. They cannot build any application, kind of like a Windows type, which is accessible only or runs only on the particular computer, but you cannot access it from anywhere else. Okay, so those are some of the constraints.
Client gives his whatever requirement, and then they go ahead and build on that.
Yeah,
Right.
then the requirements are there as well. But these are kind of like high level constraints from the organization level. So that's the example of the organization level. Now, for specific application, they have some specific requirements as well, and which could say, yes, application needs to be accessible basically via all over the US or Canada or whatever, all over the world, right? So that means it needs to be accessible over internet. So that could be application constraint as well. But generally in the company's enterprise architecture group, they review this design, their requirements document and design documents, and they say, nope, your design is wrong, or we need to add this organization level requirement here. So your design will change. It will impact your design and so forth. So those are some of the constraints as an example I'm mentioning here. Any question on the specific assumption section otherwise?
I'm just curious, what is there any set skills that goes more in line with Microsoft technologies?
So
Because I'm just trying to understand the
yeah.
different ones.
So here they are mentioning it needs to be deployed on Windows Azure, right? So again, that's where the enterprise architecture group who manages through that overall technology portfolio, basically, and they say all the new applications that are being built, they must be on Windows platform, and they must be deployable to the cloud. Because they are accessible, we're not going to deploy on our server infrastructure, basically, or on-prem infrastructure. Now, what it is there are certain servers that remains within the company, right? And if you deploy the application there, those are not accessible over internet, right? So some of those constraints are set by enterprise architecture. This says, nope, it must be deployed in the cloud so that anybody in the world can access it. Okay, so and plus it has to be on Windows platform. Here it clearly says preferred hosting environment is Windows Azure platform. So that means you need to build the application using .NET technology or Microsoft technology. Now these days you can develop a Java application and deploy on Windows Azure platform as well. But at that point, I think that when this document was written in 2015, they did not have those capabilities.
What's
Okay.
the difference between Windows, Azure, and Microsoft Azure?
No, they are pretty much same. Pretty much same. Windows Azure is a kind of like a product name, and Microsoft Azure is Microsoft is a company, right? They own all these Windows, Azure, all these different technologies. They are the ones actually They build those technology basically. So it's a Windows Azure platform, which is a cloud platform. There is a AWS that is from Amazon. There is a GCP that is from Google. The Oracle has came out with their cloud platform as well. I don't know what they are calling. IBM has their own cloud platform. Again, those are just cloud platforms on the internet. It's nothing but server that is accessible, that resides somewhere in data center and accessible all over the world. That's all.
Okay. Hey, Harris.
Yeah.
Farhan, he can hear us. I don't know what's wrong with his phone or device. He said he can hear us.
Okay, so he might have to increase the volume or something else. I'm not sure what could be wrong on his device. He might be on mute, because generally when you join the
Right.
Zoom meetings, so it
Right.
automatically mutes them, or his speakers are probably not working as expected.
And he's texting on these Zoom. He's messaging.
Yep. So just in case if he has any question, I mean, he can definitely type it in. But he's not able to hear us, so I'm not sure.
Right.
He can watch the video otherwise later on, or if he has a second device, he can try to log in from there. Okay.
So
Looks like Dilip just joined
defining
as well.
Hey, Harshal,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm
Yeah.
online.
All right. Great. Yes, go ahead.
so we can ask them what type of technology we can use it.
So generally, so here they have set the constraint, right? The technology constraint that it has to be Microsoft platform and so forth. Now, remember, this is a requirements document, right? So those technology will be flushed out in the design as you go forward. But here they are just setting some constraint that this application must be hosted, whatever they are going to build on the Azure platform. Now, business does not decide, okay, what technology. It's the technical team. They decide what technology the solution will be built.
Okay, so we don't have to consider everything they ask for in the requirements.
That is correct. Here, if it's a technical BA and they have a little bit more understanding, plus somebody might come and say, okay, it needs to be accessible. And when the enterprise architecture reviews certain documents, they say, oh, let's put that as a constraint so that whoever is designing based on these requirements, they understand what technologies and they can utilize to build the software. That's all. Okay, but otherwise business requirements.
We can consider them and change the priorities or ignore some of them.
No. So it depends, right? So if they're saying it's get it in the cloud, you can counter with here are the other options, right? But they may also have an existing condition for which they might have put in there. Like, for example, right, if they put it in that, hey, you need to be in the Azure platform, which is Microsoft's cloud, right? They may already have an existing contract, and that's why they may want the system to go in there, right? So I would not say that you can ignore it, right? You can certainly have a discussion if you feel from your technology team that there is a better solution, but then you still need to weigh in and understand why they are trying to put the constraint.
So that one only the developer team can know that whether which is good.
Typically, like it's as Herschel pointed it out, your development architects usually get involved into those discussions, right?
And they consult with the enterprise architecture as well. As I said, right? So there is a overarching architecture group in the big companies, large companies. They have it, who understands the technology direction of the companies and so forth. And they work with the project architect. So Arfloan may have a project architect who is just helping out to build the software. So project architect consults with the enterprise architects, and they figure out what technologies and they need to utilize and all other things.
So business will decide that. It's still the problem. It's still.
No, business does not decide, right? Technology side of things. All they say, hey, they can say that, hey, solution needs to be accessible because we have dealers all over the US. So whatever software we are building, it needs to be accessible on the internet for any user at any dealer site. That's all they can say at this point, because those are requirements, right? So yeah, technology stuff, they'll figure out later, basically.
Yeah.
But this section just explain, hey, these are the constraints that this project has to deal with. How they deal with, technical team will figure out. Sorry, Dilip, go ahead. You wanted to add something.
No, we're that.
Okay.
Right. As a QA, you probably don't have to worry about it. That's typically like all of this assumption and constraint is part of the development and architecture team that they address those.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So is everybody good? So we can move on.
Yes. Yes.
All right, great. Okay, it's a definition, acronym, abbreviation here. So I think it's pretty clear what is Windows Azure hosting here. So it's a definition of that. Any question on this?
What are PAS and LAS services?
So it
Yeah,
is.
go ahead.
So if you go into the cloud, right, depending on the type of services you selected, there are different models. PAS is essentially a platform as a service, and IaaS is infrastructure as a service. So PAS essentially gives you ability. If you go into Google, like what Herschel is doing it, and you just go and search on PaaS, SaaS, IaaS, infrastructure as a service, it'll give you all the definition and what it means.
So this Windows Azure will support this what is that PAS and LAS
Yeah.
like that
Yeah,
different different companies or different
no,
what is
those
that?
are so Anuradha, these are the standard offerings by cloud service provider, depending on what you want them to take care of it versus what you will take care of it. Based on that, they have like it's 4 different models. It's a platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, right? So all of those things will determine, and depending on what level of control you want, you select those options.
So
So
these services,
if you just Google it, and you're going to find a plenty of good article which tells you what is the PaaS versus SaaS versus infrastructure as a service.
so these are common for all those
That's
means
correct.
my
That's correct.
question is I can't able to convey these services will differ for different environment, hosting environment.
No, so almost all of the cloud service provider offer all this offering, whether it's an AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud.
Okay.
Yeah. These are terminologies. Their implementation might vary within their cloud, but again, these are concepts. Basically, what is how much, as Dilip said, I mean, right? There are different things. So base thing, I mean, the technical terminology you're gonna run into a lot, right? So I think you probably Google would be the best thing. Just read upon it. I think while you are reading through the document and so forth. So yeah, that will definitely help you. I mean, more you dig into, I mean, more you understand. I think it will definitely help you for different things and so forth.
So I've kind of posted a link in the chat that you can start reading through that, and gives you a different understanding of what each one of them are.
Yep.
Okay. And you can still go into more detail if you just Google it.
So like
Gotcha.
this, different types of services will be available, right? Means for here we are using cloud computing, right? For means if we use different platform, different types of services will be there, right? Means
Again, think of this way, right? In a traditional world, you're going to have a solution hosted either what we call it is on-premise, which is within your own data center, or you're going to do it on cloud. And if you're doing it in a cloud, Cloud has 3 or 4 different models, and those are the models.
Okay.
Right. So essentially, whenever a solution is deployed, think of it, it's either you do it in your own machine or you rent a machine and put it. When you're putting it on a cloud, you're renting a machine and putting the solution there.
Okay. All right. Great discussion. Any other question? If not, I'm moving on to the core of the things to see if you have any question on some of these items.
Now, Herschel, I don't know if you already asked the team, have they already seen the video along with the?
Most of them did. Some of them, I think, have not.
I have not.
So Marilyn, I would recommend is watch the video, right? That'll
Yes.
answer a lot of other questions. Any questions, or is the purpose of context diagram and how you're reading this is clear to everybody?
Yeah, I think it's clear. For me, I think it's payment calculation first, then the submit credit application, and then credit application notification. Then fourth one, I think credit application approval, rejection or approve, and then credit application notification again, and then loan review report, the diagram.
That the whole goal is right. It talks about the system context, like who is using it, where does it fit in the business process. But mainly, it mainly talks about the context of the system in terms of the user and some processes. Okay, that's, and it's important to understand this because when you are testing or when you are diving into the QA activities, you need to understand all these different parts. Yes,
So
go ahead.
this is like a functional requirement, right? Pretty much payment calculation is a functional requirement. Submit application, credit application is a functional requirement. So these all are the functional requirements for the dealer and soft on the left side, and the right side is functional requirement for the lender. Is that right?
I would say it's a little bit different than just a traditional functional requirement. It just tells you what are the activities or interaction happens by the dealers with the system and lenders with the system.
Okay.
There are functional requirements is going to drill it down even more detail, what it means to submit a credit application, or how do you, what is required in order for payment calculation, right? So this is the high level functions that each one of the entity performs on the system, whether it's a lender or dealer.
Okay.
A lot of times you will also think around this as how the transaction flows through the system, in what sequence. So like in the example that we gave it for the Amazon, right? Typically you go into the site, search for an item, put an item on the cart, perform a checkout, select the shipping method, and submit the order, right?
One second, I'm asking the basic questions because
Sure.
I'm new to all this basic
Yeah, that's fine.
technologies. I still don't know what is the entity means. What is entity? What is business entity?
So think of it as it's an actor, right? So lender is one type of the people who are working on the system. Dealers is another type of people working in the systems. Then you're also going to have your Arfloan agents working on the system. If you read the description, right, the problem statement,
Okay.
it talks about what are the different types of quote unquote users will interact with the system. Right. So in this overview or problem statement, right, you can see there is a customer who is involved in the overall systems. Then there is a dealer and a dealer shop employees. Then you're going to have lenders.
So these all are
and then you have an Arfloan agent.
It's like a process workflow, is that correct? From the time the customer enters the shop, how the dealer basically
It's sort of,
calculates
you can say it is sort of process flow is what the context diagram is giving you understanding. Right? But who all is involved in that process flow is what follows the description or the boxes in that context diagram helps you to understand, right? Because you have a dealer is involved in it, your system is involved in it, and your lenders are involved in it.
So, Dilip, the Arfloan is a cloud-based web application, right?
It isn't
And
just don't worry about cloud-based or anything, right?
technology-wise,
Arfloan
yep.
is a application that is helping in overall business process.
Right, that any dealers can use it. Any dealers and lender
Right.
can use it. Okay, great.
Okay. Any other question here? Okay, if not, I'm moving on.
Okay.
So if you remember, right, what we talked about as an architecture, the definition of computer architecture is essentially what are the different parts and pieces of the system and how they interact with each other. So this diagram shows Arfloan.com is functionally can be broken down into this 7 components, and they interact with each other in order to provide the functionalities that is expected out of the system. So if you're to divide the various capabilities of the system into different functions, these are the 7 functions.
Okay. Who manage these? Like a managed dealer, managed user. Who manage like Airflow agent can manage these all, like users and the dealers, or it says
So
managed.
when you read it further, right, those are the functionality, right? And there are certain roles in the systems who have an ability to manage the dealers. There are certain roles in the system who can manage the lenders and so on. And all of those details are into the subsequent pages and the requirements.
So who has access to do what, right? That is in the, I think it comes a little bit later in the document, right? If you have gone through the full document, you probably will recognize it. But think of it as this is how they are functionally dividing the system, because somebody, in order for dealer to do the work, somebody has to set up a dealer in the system, right? Somebody has to set up a lender into a system. Some users needs to be set up in the system. So those are the first 3 things. Then the loan calculation part, how they are going to calculate the loan. So they are creating a kind of like a functionality within the system to give the ability for a dealer to calculate the loan. How they are going to submit credit application. So that needs to be a functionality within the system. How somebody lender is going to approve or reject credit application. That functionality needs to be there. And there are some supplemental reports they need to create. So these are kind of like a functional decomposition. That's the reason it's called functional decomposition. So if you break down Arfloan, it's divided into this many functions or features. You can say features as well.
Okay.
All right. Now, as I said, this work is done by the business analyst. Okay. QAs are reading the document. Developers are reading the same document, and they are trying to design the system looking at the same document. QAs are looking at from the quality standpoint. Now, when you get a system for testing or something, right? When the actually developers write the code, and you get a system, and you don't see, hey, how do I manage the dealers? Where is that functionality? The whole functionality is missing. That's where you're gonna have issue. This somebody missed that functionality building as part of the Arfloan. So you cannot, your system is not complete development wise. Okay. All right. So it's important for you to understand what are the features being built in the system, and these are the features here. Okay. All right. Any question here? If not, then I'm gonna move on. Okay. let's dive into the business processes section. Any question on this section of the document?
So, so this CRED is that create, read, and update?
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It is create, read, and update.
Okay.
I think the key thing that you want to focus here is what causes the process to start and what happens when the process is complete, and what business rules you need to make sure the system follows during those process executions.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In the one in the bottom, essentially tells you what kind of data is involved when those process execution happens.
Okay. I have a question about this business rule. I pretty much understand this detailed description, like cause, occur, and what happened after process is completed. But business rule, like is ARF, like 1.1, all dealers shall be assigned. So this is pretty much all dealers shall be assigned a unique franchise. It's pretty much sounds like it's what happened after the process is completed. So I don't know, like
it is part of the process, right? So what it just says that, hey, while you're creating a dealer, right, you need to make sure every dealer gets a unique franchise number assigned, right? So think around identity, right? So you stay in the United States, you pay tax, right? You have a specific tax ID number, whether it's Social Security or your TIN number, right? So everybody, when they file with the government taxes, each one of them gets a unique tax identification number. Same way, whenever dealer gets created in the systems, they want to make sure each dealer is assigned a unique number that they can then be associated with.
So like this, we can write so many rules, right?
Don't think you can write it. What this is your business tells you, or a business analyst tells you what are the rules as expected. You, as a quality assurance person, need to make sure that all of those rules are followed within the system.
Okay.
So as a QA, our job is to read, right? Like read through the documents
and apply that 3C and T, right? So here I would just say, as a quality assurance person, how are you going to make sure that this business rule is followed during the creation of the dealer, right? Can you validate that each dealer is created with a unique franchise number? And do you know how that franchise number is created?
Okay.
Right? Those are the 3C and T, right? Completeness. A, do you know what the unique franchise number means? 2, do you know how it gets generated? And is the information of how to generate it is consistent across the document?
Okay.
I think that's the
okay.
state.
So you're gonna, yeah, go ahead. Somebody has a
2 digits
question.
from state and 2 digits from
right. That's the detail, right?
Those are details, right?
So you need to see it as if I read it only this, if somebody gives you only this line, right, it's incomplete, right? Because you don't know how that unique franchise number is generated. So for you, there is no way to test it. But as you look through the rest of the document, there are places where it's clearly identify how that unique franchise number gets generated.
Okay. So
this is incomplete here, you mean?
No, but so the whole point, we wanted you to read the entire document, right?
Yeah.
Because there are certain pieces get defined earlier, and the details gets defined a little bit later as you go into specific requirements. So you need to put all of those pieces together to say, when a dealer gets created, what is the unique franchise number gets generated and how it gets generated.
Business rule. So some of the managed dealer shop, so managed lender, they don't have a business rule. Some of the points later, like some of the business process, some of them does not have like a business rule. If you go down, like manage like something like manage lender, manage user. They don't have business rule.
They should have some type of rules. If they don't have it, that's fine. But what it boils down to is each functional component right here. So now we are zooming in a little bit further. Okay, that's where you're gonna see the business process. What triggers the managed dealer process here, right? And what happens after the process is complete? What are the some of the rules that goes along with that? Now you're gonna see the detailed requirements that ties to the managed dealers a little bit later. Okay, so there's a flow here. That's how typically the requirements are written. They zoom in a little bit further. They zoom in a little bit further in the later on in the document. So you need to, but you need to have a bigger picture how this thing's supposed to work. Okay, so that's how typically the documents are written. So there is a pattern here. Okay.
Okay.
Any question here?
No.
On this specific one, right? So now you can put it in the context. So now we will go to the manage users, right? But there are some data entity components here, right? Some data. So what happens? How the dealer is created, right? Or what information is required. So they have identified certain elements or data elements in order to create a dealer, basically, or set up a dealer in the system.
What is CRUD? I didn't get that.
Create, read, update, and delete.
Yeah, delete.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
So there are only 4 possible things related to the information or data that happens. You can create somebody, right? Create some record in the system. When you go in the bank, they're gonna set up your account. So that's kind of like a creating your account. Okay, so it's a C. When they update your account, when they update your phone number changes, they are going to change some information. That's update.
Okay.
When your account is no longer active and they want to remove from that system, that's a delete.
Okay.
Okay. And when they are reading, when they are searching your account by your name, first name or last name or social security or driver license, then they are reading the information. That's a R. That's a read. So that's the terminology they are using here.
Okay.
So is it a kind of privilege here? So what they can do and what they cannot do
with this data? Yes. What this data with this particular data elements. With the dealer information, they can only do create, read, and update. They cannot delete.
Okay. So
they cannot delete. Okay. There is no D here.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the reason there is no D. Generally, in the financial systems, they typically don't delete any information. They will leave it forever. That's that information.
Okay.
So yeah, you go to the bank, you create an account, and even if you deactivate or you close out account will still be there in their system. It's just inactivate. They will mark it inactive.
Right. So I can change my phone number. I can change my address.
Yeah.
I can delete my address, right? I don't know.
That's right.
I can update.
Yeah.
Well, you can update it, not necessarily delete it, right? So this one just says is that. What it'll do is it'll create new address and associate, but it'll still maintain the history that this was your previous address.
Right. Makes sense.
Okay. All right. So does it make sense for the data?
Active, inactive, and dead.
Dead. Yeah.
Does it really need 2 data for active and inactive?
Yes. So dead is in their business terminology. It's not like a person because this is a dealer shop. Remember, this is a dealer. It's a company. Company cannot be dead.
Inactive can just be a flag, like.
That is correct. It can be one is active. This could be mutually exclusive as well, right? Active or inactive, right? But this is how they have identified.
At the same time.
Well, they have identified these elements. So when they actually design it, they might say, "Oh, active and inactive. We don't need separate flags." Okay. Remember, business analyst is collecting this information, whatever is business provided. They are not designing the system. System design is done by the developers.
Right.
So right now they are just capturing what business told them. Hey, this is active, inactive. Okay, it makes sense. Business sense. We'll keep it separate.
I mean, in what context? I didn't understand. Is it that means the dealer is active or dealer is inactive?
Yep.
Yeah,
Dealer is active or dealer is inactive.
Gotcha.
Yep. Now the dead, there is a terminology. The reason they have it dead term because they visit the dealer. They want to leave the dealer in the system, but they will say, oh, this dealer is not interested in our product or our software. So they want to identify that because the dealer is not active or inactive. It's just that they visited the dealer, but they are no longer interested. So they are marking it as a dead. Okay. So that's the business terminology. You need to a little bit understand and so forth. If you have a question, yeah, you certainly need to discuss with the business analyst and understand.
So what is this AR? Is there Arfloan representative? So I see these ARF REPs. Right.
So have you? So you read it here, right?
Right.
So I'm just trying to see here.
A little bit further up, right? So you have agents.
Yep,
at the
there
top.
you go. Yeah, there you go.
So you have an agent. So AR rep is essentially nothing but Arfloan representative, which
Okay.
are the agents.
Okay.
Yeah. They are the ones actually, they are more like a sales guys, right? So they go on behalf of Arfloan, hey, say, talk to the dealer, hey, we have this great product. Would you like to sign up? And they say, yep, I'm interested. Let's set up, let us set up basically our process in there. Okay. And those are our reps. So okay, same thing, regional manager. It's a manager above our rep, the sales channel now, right? So there is a regional manager who is the boss of our rep people. So kind of like a regional, if you look at any sales organization or structure, right? They have certain territories and they have their territory boss, which is called like a generally regional manager, and so forth. So that's the same terminology for these guys here. Okay. So for every dealer, what it means is for every dealer, they're identifying who is the sales guy, who is our rep, and who is the regional manager, or basically for the dealer. That's all they are doing here.
Yeah.
Okay. It might help them for reporting and all other things. So they identify these data elements upfront. All right, moving on to the manage users.
Information use.
So this is a manage user business process, right? Any question on this thing?
Okay, processing business processing. So no, actually, it looked like pretty much similar to the managed dealer shop. Like they have the same process name, detailed description, and what like cause to process the cause the process to occur. What happened after that? So pretty much the same thing.
Now, do you guys understand this part? What this tells you? What this section talks about?
Right. Yes. So super user can manage user. Yes. What they can super user cannot do is approve a DNS. That's only lender can do it.
Okay.
So
okay. So you are reading it correctly, but I would just want to make sure everybody else understands.
The super user can also submit credit applications.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Gotcha. Anybody has any question on this one? Okay. Now, obviously, they have more business rules, but I'll let you guys read through it and digest those rules on your own time. But if you have any question, you can certainly bring it up. Okay. So I'm just moving on because this is related to the user, right? All the data elements that they need in order to set up a user here. So they have identified certain things. And going to the manage lender section.
Harshal, just one thing, if you can just scroll up a little bit more, right? So if you look at the end of this table, right, the last row is 3 dots.
Yeah.
Right. What it means is that it's an additional data attributes, right? In a lot of those things, where would you find it? Do you read both documents, right? Where would you find additional details? It's in the data section in the detailed design document,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
So it gives you all of those details. So that's the one way to say it's, hey, here are the key things, but there are additional data. And then those data is kind of defined or have the conversation when they start defining it more in the detailed design. Right? So you'll see the similar pattern for all of the processes.
Yep. Okay. So everybody good with that, right?
Yeah. So Arshil, I would just
Manage
say
lender section.
all of these now 2.x sections, right? Or 2.3.x sections. It's taking what Herschel pointed it out, the 7 functional, and then they're breaking down in order to support those 7 functional areas. What are the business processes? There are manage dealers, manage lender, manage users. As you go through it, there is the next one which talks about how the loan calculator functionality works. Then the next section will talk specifically about how you're going to go ahead and submit a credit application, right? And then in this case, there are a lot of data. So they just refer it. This is an internal example of attachment, right? Where they say, hey, you know what? The credit application has tons of data. And here is the sample credit application that they have provided as an attachment that has all the information. Right? So a lot of times, this is how you're going to see it in the requirements document, that they will refer to some sort of attachment for all the details instead of specifying that within the document itself.
Yeah, in the design, you're gonna see exact elements. What are the different elements they are storing along with the credit application for the credit application, actually. Okay.
So you will see it, the pattern, right? In this case, after you submit credit application, one of the other capabilities from lender point of view is approval and rejection of application. So what are the rules around it, right? And when does this particular process gets kicked off, right? So if you look into it, right, all they can do it's part of this one is update only the credit application status. They can't do anything else.
Okay. So they don't have business rule here, right?
Well, there are not additional business rules, right? So the process and the data rules validation all still happens. So you will see it. There are specific requirement when you talk about how are you going to go about approving and rejecting credit application, is going to do it. So there is a system requirement, but then there is a business rules. So as a business rules, there is no additional business rules here.
Okay.
The loan calculator, they can't update the minimum monthly payment.
Again, there is no specific business rules, right? And how this loan calculator works, there are additional section which talks about the detailed requirements.
Okay, so they cannot update or delete.
So think about it, right? When you go to get a loan, right? All you're providing is how much amount of the loan that you want. And the bank tells you, if you want this much loan, this is what your monthly payment will be, right? You don't go and say, hey, I need $5,000 loan, but I'll pay only $10 a month. You can't do that, right?
Yeah.
The bank tells you, if you want $5,000 and you want for this many months, this is what your monthly payment is going to be. That's why minimum monthly payment is not a information that you input in the system. It is something that you read it from the system.
Okay. All right. So I think this is a business process level, right? So it doesn't have here business rules, but there are actually detailed requirements where you find the more information as well. But you need to understand how the loan calculator is supposed to work, what triggers it, what happens afterwards, and the actual calculation and other details might be a little bit later in the document, in the actual requirements. Okay. So I'm going from here to the approve reject credit application, again, following the same pattern here. Who does it, when it's triggered, what happens afterwards. and what are the data elements that's being utilized as part of the process here. Okay, so any question on till like 2-3 section? Anything we missed out? Anything you guys wanted to or have a need clarification? On 2.3.x, I guess, this particular section. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the 2.4. There are no rules here. They don't have any additional things, so it's empty. Generally, the companies have templates, so that's the reason it's not filled out, this particular section, because they don't have anything to fill out. 2.5. Any question on 2.5?
I didn't quite understand this part, actually.
What are these manager dealer users and manager dealers?
So it should read manage dealers, right? Not manager.
Yeah.
But
manage.
what this one talks about is the system has different roles. So if I log in as a system, right, I may have a different role than when Herschel logs in into the system, right? And it tells you, depending on the roles that you have it, what functions you can do it in the system. And in order to do that, what kind of data access you need.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
Okay.
little
So for
below,
example,
there are
if you look
two-
into the site administrator here, right, it tells it as a site administrator, I can manage the users, I can access the manage dealer functionality, I can do management of lenders, I can submit credit application, as well as I can run the reports. Now, if you look into it, right, this is another way to represent what you had seen it in the section 2.3.2 about the different access levels, right?
Yes.
That's all this one is referring into it. So this
Would
is
that
where
be
you
the
need to
super
apply
user?
the consistency lens and says, hey, is this telling me exact same level of capability that what section 2.3.2 was saying? And if it is not, then that's when you ask user a question. Wait a minute, can you provide me clarification? If I have this role, can I do all these functions or not?
Yeah.
So somebody asked about the super user.
Yeah, so basically the manage user, site administrator, dealer, air rep. So basically, is he the super user here?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Right.
That's exactly
So
what
that's
it is.
kind of question you should be asking. Is site administrator same as a super user, right?
Yes.
And that's the clarification you need to get it. That's where the consistency lens comes in.
They both are same terminology. It's the same user. They are just referring it differently.
Okay.
And with the RFREP, they have manager dealer users and manager dealers.
Manage.
Yeah, it should be manage.
Yeah, but why are they different? Manage dealer users and manage dealers?
Okay, so
Users
think
is
around
like
it.
the
There
common
are two
customers?
functionalities. There are two different
Applicants?
levels. When you talk about dealers, right? You have dealers, like for example, Germain Honda is the dealer. Then there are people who works at that dealership
Like
who has
applicants?
access to your system. Those are your dealer users.
So John Smith works at German Honda, right? So somebody needs to set up the dealer first, the company. Dealer is nothing but a company.
Right.
And the employee working at Germain, they are actually doing the work, the calculating the loans, submitting the credit application. They are actually people. So they are they will be set up as a dealer user in the system.
So they are the employees are the dealer
Yep,
users.
employees are
But-
the dealer users. That's
So
correct. Employees of that.
customers directly don't have any, they don't directly log in. Customers who apply for the loan,
That's correct.
who
That,
come
that
Right.
there for the repair.
Did you
Because
see
if
any
you-
requirement? Yeah, that talks about customer
No.
logging into the system. Then yeah, that they don't.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Right.
That's
And
what
that
I'm
was laid
clarifying.
out in the business problem itself, right? So when you read the section 1, it says that the customer just goes to the dealership and dealer employee on behalf of customer submits this credit application.
Right. Okay, clear.
All right. Any other question on this section here? Okay.
So now you can start seeing a pattern, right? Of how the requirements and how the details starts drilling it down. You start at the top level, start getting into more details. And this is just a different view of the section 2.5, right? As each of the user, what kind of functions they utilize it and what it triggers it. So for example, when a dealer user submits a credit application, then it triggers an email workflow notification that goes ahead and sends it out those notifications. Same thing when a lender approves or rejects somebody, it triggers a workflow that sends it out the appropriate email.
Okay. This is the use case diagram. You're going to run into that use case diagram.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what the diagram looks like. This is how it looks like. Usability, functional, individual functional and usability requirements diagram or use case diagram.
So here we don't have to show that site administrator and ARF reps can also access the.
It's a discussion. You should bring that up, that point, why they omitted this thing, right? Because, and if anything is not consistent with what they can do with those tables that you have at the top, right?
Yeah.
So you saw what site admin can do, why it's not on this
can
diagram.
Also do everything dealer user can do.
Yep.
Right.
So
here they are not pointing it out.
That's the consistency within the document, right?
Okay.
And sometimes it's not complete. Maybe they missed out.
Something we have to point out, right?
Yep. You have to point out and precisely. Yep, that is correct. That's what this 3CNT comes from. Okay. Because you might get confused. Why it's not here? Why it's there? Which one should I do? Which one should I use? You don't know, right? So, all right. So moving on.
So now what you just see it is then for each one of those functional modules, what are the detailed requirements are, right? So you have a business rules that you need to make sure that it's followed. And then you have a detailed requirement that needs to be followed here. So here is an example, right? So when you look at 1.3, it tells you how the franchise number is calculated, right? So the business rules was every dealer should have a unique franchise number. So that's the rule. And the requirements tells you how do you build out that franchise number, right? So it says you take the first 2 digits of a state, first 2 digit of county, and then 3 digits incremental number, right? The reason why it is, within Ohio, within Franklin County, you may have 50 dealers. So how do you distinguish those? So it says you do OH, FR, and then you put the sequential number 1 through 50 for each one of them. Right.
Yeah, they might have multiple locations, so same dealer shop. Yep.
So that's the point, right? And then it also tells you is that, hey, I should be able, as part of managing a dealer, I should be able to search on a given dealer, whether he's present in the system or not, right?
What also, if there are more than 100?
Well, it allows you to do 999. Yeah. 3 zeros, right? So 3 digits.
Yeah.
Right. And realistically, you're not going to have within a, because think around it, it's also zeroing down at the county level.
Okay.
Right. So have you seen it like 1,000 dealer within a county? Probably
with
not
the same name.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Also, as you go through it, right, you're going to see it that, hey, every dealer should have an associated Arfloan rep. Right. And then all you just say is all of the other systems, right? That, hey, as I visit dealer every time, I should have an ability to add notes about what is activity I've done at the dealer. Okay. And the same template follows for managing the users then. right? Here are the 10 requirements when I need to do a manage users. What do I need to then do for managing lender? What do I need to do it for loan calculator? What do I need it to do the submit credit application, right? And what do I need it in order to generate the reports?
Okay.
So here it gives
Any
you an
question?
example.
Yeah.
Hey, if I want to like submit a report as a super user, what all criteria I can provide it to generate the report, right? And then you can just say it as if I'm a super user, I may want to show it everything in the system versus I'm a salesperson or a AR rep. All I can do it is take care of my regions or my dealers only.
Okay.
So you'll see the different levels of criteria as they go through it.
Okay. Any question on any of the requirements section? I would strongly encourage you guys to read this document, right? Understand. I think you should have a little bit clearer picture now after the discussion, how you should be reading this document or how this document is organized. Okay.
Should we be reading into all these reporting requirements documents?
You can, but we'll focus on the other requirements. So understand the reporting requirements document. I would say, if you want to read through, understand this first section, okay? Because reporting requirements can get complex depending on the things. So, but let's focus on the functionality side of things, which we will focus on the top portion. So if you have definitely need clarification, if you don't understand something, bring it up. But I think we're gonna focus on.
I meant as a QA people, do we have to?
Oh
focus
yes, you have to. Yeah.
Okay.
That you as a QA, you will be responsible for the quality of the product. That includes the reporting. Okay. So those were the functional requirements, the features, the software features, the functionality that you are going to build. You're probably gonna spend 80-90% of the time on the functional requirements document or the section. Okay. But that doesn't mean you will ignore the non-functional requirements. Generally, in the real world, there might be dedicated team to do the non-functional requirements. You may or may not do as a QA. You might be focused on the functional side of things only. But it's good to understand what these things are. And because the testing is a little bit different than what you are going to do as a functional standpoint. And there are specific tools that are used by to test out these things. Okay, so that's the reason. But if you have any question on the non-functional requirement, let us know and we can discuss.
So just to be clear, so for the functional requirements, the type of requirements and the tool used are based on the nature of the software that is being developed. Am I
That is correct. The features, it focuses on the features or the functionality of the software that is being built from the business standpoint. Yeah.
Okay, so that means that the tools you may use for one software may not necessarily be the same tool you use for a different software. Right?
Tool, what tool you are referring to? Yeah.
I'm talking about tool in terms of just like how you were trying to explain the non-functionality softwares.
Yep.
And
Yep.
You said for each of them, there's a tool you could use to test them. That's what you
Yes.
said.
So like for performance and testing, right? So you cannot just it talks about system response time needs to be 99% of the time. It needs to be less than 2 seconds. You cannot test it manually. You have to utilize some type of software. There are a lot of load testing, performance testing tools out there. One of them is a load runner, wind runner, that requires some scripting knowledge. How do you simulate certain user load? So come more like a scalability here, right? How do you use the tool to simulate 500 user load? Okay, it talks about, hey, 500 users will be logged in with a concurrency rate of approximate 10% or 50 concurrent users. So how do you simulate 50 users? Are you going to ask 50 actual people to log in at the same time and perform the activity? That's not practical, right? So that's where the tool comes in. They can simulate the user load for scalability and the performance and so forth.
Okay.
Now, tools, depending on the company, the tool can vary. Okay, so there are
Okay.
no set of tools. I mean, it's not like a one tool. There
Okay.
are thousands of tools out there.
Okay, and that's the same thing I'm asking for the functionality. For the
No,
functional
functionality you have to do manually.
Oh, okay.
Okay, functionality, because you need to understand how the functionality or what is being built, you cannot just use the tools. Now, once you do test it manually, now if you are repeating the same process over and over again for testing the same feature, or let's say if you add a new field on the screen, you still have to go and test it again manually. Now that process become repetitive, right? So it's called regression testing. We're going to talk about, I think, maybe this Sunday, what are the different types of testing and how you can apply certain techniques for those. But for doing those type of work, you can utilize some automation testing tool, but you still have to test it manually first. You cannot
Gotcha.
just simply automate everything.
I get it now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so any question on this section? I would strongly encourage you read through it and bring that up if you have any question on the sections, and if you want to read more about it, I can certainly point you. But we're gonna focus heavily on the functionality side of testing in the class. Okay, and if you are interested in learning the tools, I'll point you as once we dive into the technology side. Okay, after the sixth session, we'll dive into the technology side, and that's where we'll dive into the tools, technologies, and other things.
Do you need to have any knowledge of coding in this, or just the knowledge of tools is sufficient to do these testing?
You don't need any coding knowledge.
Okay.
Unless you are doing the performance testing. Yes, there is some scripting involved because every tool is different. You need to do some basic coding, but nothing major. Now, if you are doing automation testing, certain tools you don't they are codeless automation tools, so you don't need any coding knowledge. They will generate the code for you, and that's a trend these days. Pretty much all the tools, new tools coming in the market, they are pretty much codeless automation tools. It will automatically generate the code in the background for you, but you still need to configure those tools to do the automation testing. And we're going to look at one of the tool, I think Catlon. It will make more sense at that point to talk a little bit further. But there are certain tools where they are like 80% coding and 20% configuration. That's where you need to learn the coding, like Ruby or Java or something else. But we're not going to talk about any programming here, at least not the coding standpoint. Yes, there is a SQL component. We will do some hands-on on the coding side, but that's related to the data side of things, not the programming side of things. Okay, any other question on this document? Okay, so generally they have some approvals because a lot of people needs to review this document, and you might be one of the team member. Your name might be on this document as well as a QA lead. If you are a QA lead, generally you will provide a review the document to say, yep, I understand it, and so that I can go back to my team and they can start working through the QA activities and so forth. So QA typically reviews the business requirement document. Developers will do that at the same time. So you might see some architect's name or lead developer name for reviewing the documents. Okay. But other than that, I mean, There are some entity information I think we'll talk about when we talk about SQL and so forth. So we'll ignore this portion for now.
So 3.9.
Okay. 3.9. Okay, here. Yep.
So the archiving too, is that necessary to archiving too? The user must be able to archive a group of readings to a local storage device. It was never
So I
mentioned
think yeah, it's that requirement. So that's where this 3CNT comes, right? So I think you read the right requirement here, which does not belong in this document.
Okay.
Okay. So it might be a copy paste from the business analyst standpoint. As I said, they might be using some template and they did not clear out this one because it does not really belong here. There is nothing to do with the Arfloan project, this requirement.
Okay.
Now this requirement, archiving one, yes, it makes sense. They talk about credit application data should be retained for 2 years with an automatic delete after 2-year period. Okay. Now, but this number 2 does not belong in this document.
Okay.
Yeah, those things you should be questioning. Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody good with this requirements document? Shall we move on to the design?
Yep.
All right. So let me pull that up. I'm going to pull up the.
5.
Yep. Go ahead.
They did not mention about agents or RFREPs or anybody entities. Yeah, here 5.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
So
only-
because so sometimes I mean, so when you look at it, right, those are not, they are part of the user, right? All of them are
okay,
users.
they're all part of users.
Yeah, they all are users, right? Different types of users. That's where
Okay.
you are saying that super user, RFREP user, and those things. So that's the reason they are not set up as a different grouping, kind of like RFREP or regional manager.
Okay.
Yep. But good question. Okay, how they set up? There are different types of users.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So I'm moving on here. So as I think you're gonna see the similar pattern, right? Here, some first page is obviously talks about the version history, change history of the document, who made the change, when it was made. Then they have project overview, which is nothing but more like a business problem statement they are trying to solve here. Okay, so that's what it is, but it's a little bit more technical in the nature. So you might find some differences, but I think this is a good way to read it. If you have, so it will give you a little bit more understanding of how they are planning to build the system. Okay, so customer will come to the shop employee will go to the arfloan.com and click on dealer login link. This one will bring up a login page. Once logged in, employee will see his shop information. So this is talking about the dealer logging into the Arfloan. There shall be a link for the new loan calculation. Employee will click on it to bring up the loan calculation page. So it talks about the flow. Okay, so it's a different context here, different details you're gonna get from the design document. Okay. So I would like you guys to read through this section as well, and because it will talk about a little bit how they are planning to build the system.
Will you explain a little bit more about the F point?
Which one? Which section?
Yes.
F.
Yeah, that.
Okay, and some info, the load calculator should be popular in the disclaimer area. Okay, let's see. There should be a link for the new loan calculator. Employee will click to bring up the loan. At the bottom of the page, it will have a disclaimer and some info from the calculator will be populated in the disclaimer area. I think they might have typed this thing wrong. All the purpose here is they need to input the loan amount and they need to calculate it. Calculate the monthly payment, right? So I think they might have mistyped some of the information here. Bottom, I'm not sure why they have bottom of the page, right?
So it's
So
not necessary there?
no. What's the purpose of having a disclaimer?
Probably like
Is there a purpose of having a disclaimer?
probably if they put a wrong input, like a wrong number, maybe
Yeah, I mean, but that's a simple discussion with the technical folks, and they say, "Oh, that's my mistake. We shouldn't have this line here. It should be this. They should be able to input the loan amount and calculate monthly payment. That's all."
Oh, okay.
So it's not a page that the customer signs. That's what the disclaimer is. Is it not a page that the customer should sign?
No, because remember, customer does not come in the picture. Dealer is submitting on the behalf of the customer.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is a customer never really have access to the system.
Okay. I was thinking that after the customer come in and then they fill the application, then
No, because the dealer is dealer will check their social security number. They will have and they will input all this information once they verify driver license, all those things, right? It's like a dealer customer is sitting in front of me. I'm sitting on the computer as a dealer user, and I'm typing it on their behalf.
Okay.
Yeah. But I need to verify, make sure they have the right social security number, they have right date of birth, whatever I'm inputting is correct.
Yeah.
So I might verify the paperwork outside.
Yeah.
Right. And remember, they have to do that because they are interested for them to get the loan, because then only they can get it funded to do the repairs, right? So the dealer has a vested interest to make sure all the information is correct.
Thank you.
So the document section is pretty much to like keep the record for a future, like documenting.
Yeah, you may have to send some to the lender, right? In certain scenarios. So, but that is a business process which is handled outside the system, right? All system does it is, hey, based on the documents that you have, it access from the customer, enter all of their information, right? So the lender may still require them to give a pay stub regarding their income, right? But that is not through the systems. That is done outside the system.
Okay. So this is like a problem statement, like in a requirement page. It says that these are the problem, right? So
Right.
is this all similar to the problem, like it in the beginning of the requirement?
Yeah. So this one goes in a little bit more detail. As this one talks about actually how the system will be used to accomplish the task that was identified in the business problem, right? So in section 1 of the requirements document, there were A through I, and this one just tells you how those things are implemented or to be designed in the system.
Oh, okay. This one, yep.
Okay.
So you can clearly see the process from there to here is how the system gets done.
Okay. So I'm moving on to the, sorry, go ahead, Dilip.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying section 2 then talks about what are the characteristics of the system is going to be. So remember, we talked about functional and non-functional requirements. This section starts identifying what your non-functional requirements. What are the behaviors of the system, right? So for example, this one talks about, hey, I'm expecting roughly 100 users at the same time in the system. I'm expecting on an average 500 transactions going through the system on a daily basis. And when I'm trying to do it at transactions, I'm expecting 90% of the transaction gets completed in less than 2 minutes.
2 seconds.
97% of them will be 5 seconds or less, right?
Okay.
So this thing tells you the characteristics of how the system performance and how the system should behave.
Right.
Remember, this is a design document, right? So it's for you to understand how they are planning to build it, but your requirements is the main document that you are working with. Okay. Right. But this document will give you a little bit more understanding of the system, of how they are planning to build it, so that you can write your steps and come up with the QA side of activities. Okay,
Mm.
they will not
No
have any new
corrections here,
requirement.
like
No, you can identify some discrepancy and clarify it if you find any.
like
Um,
the business area is also marketing, right? Not just loans.
well, this is what they identified here. So business area, I mean, correction wise, I mean, there is no really impact to the quality, right?
Yeah.
So,
So can you help me understanding when you make a statement, there is no marketing? Tell me a little bit more about where your thinking is.
But there is marketing, and they did not highlight the marketing part.
No, but tell me when you say marketing, give me an example of marketing.
you're talking about this here,
No,
this
business
section?
area first one.
The top
Oh,
one.
here. Okay, loans.
Okay, so that's not marketing. This is talks about
Yeah.
what is the overall business area in which this system is playing role.
Who is paying
Okay.
for
Right.
it, or
So
who
this
might
one,
pay
it
for
talks
it?
about that the whole system is centered around giving the loan and managing the loans. It is not around e-commerce. E-commerce is usually like your Amazon type of thing. I'm selling things online, right? Marketing it essentially, hey, I'm kind of marketing all the products, right? So it tells you about the product aspect. This one is focused centered around the loans.
Okay.
So I think
And
so.
in the solutions, we also have reporting.
So reporting will be part of any system, right? I mean, whether it's as finance, marketing, or loans or e-commerce, they all want to know how much we sold or how much loans we had, how
So
many
we don't
customers
have
came
to
in.
mark
Yeah.
an X on that.
Well,
No.
so all this
Why
one
not?
says is, what are the key patterns that is going to be implemented in the system, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, it is managing the data and helps you to with the business process automation of applying for a loan and getting the loan approved or rejected. That's all the whole domain area for this one. That's what it is. Now, there are certain systems which are dedicated only for reporting. Like, for example, if you're in the financial world, right? So you may have an audit requirement, so generating all the audit reports. That system is then focused only on the reporting.
Data and reporting, yep.
So this is talks about what are the key domain in which this thing is done.
It said dealers will generate reports or something.
But that's
like
just a part of functionality, right? It is not the purpose. This one is talking about the purpose for which the solution patterns are
only
used.
the purpose. Okay.
Yep. All right.
Do you understand by this batch schedule and real-time data acquisition? I mean, is that
this part?
So
4C and 4D, batch
yes,
scheduling and real-time data acquisition would be?
So typically, like you're going to have systems which performs things in a real time or near real time.
Right.
And then you will have another classification of system which performs transaction at certain predefined regular interval only. Okay. So in a traditional, like it's so many years ago when internet was not prevalent, right? Most of the systems will process all of the data in the night. And that's what's called batch processing. A lot of times, right? For example, if you get a whole bunch of emails, but you don't distribute those emails till certain time only, then it's called a batch processing, right? So let's take an example. Everybody gets a United States Postal Service messages, right? A postman will come and deliver post to you on a daily basis, which is called a more or less kind of a batch. So it doesn't matter what time of the day the other person sends you mail, all you get it is once a day, right? If you go into that mode of processing in the system, then it's called a batch processing. But if you say it's every time I get any mail, as soon as I get a mail, just deliver it to me. Don't wait it till the next day morning. Then it'll be a near real time.
Yeah, it's like a mailing a check versus sending some electronic transaction or like a Venmo or something, right? So Venmo is instantaneous, real time. Somebody gets money right away. But if you mail it, it might show up after 5 days.
It's basically like a Venmo and just a transfer into
Precisely.
the Yeah.
Whether you're doing a transaction as soon as it
Gotcha.
occurs, or you're doing it like it's putting it together, batching all of them together and processing it once.
So in this context, so real-time data acquisition would be the loan calculator, calculating of loan. That would be real-time data acquisition.
No,
They are
also
saying,
submitting it,
yeah.
right? So as soon as submit the credit application,
Okay.
it fires an email to the lender right away,
Oh,
right? And as soon as lender approves it or rejects it, it fires an email and gets me right away.
okay. That's the real time. And how
That's the
about the
real-time
batch
data.
schedule in this context?
Right. So the batch schedule would be is if I'm a dealer and I have like 15 credit application, all of those applications are submitted, let's say at the end of the day, then it will be a batch processing.
Okay, got it.
Or even if I submit during the day, the email notification does not go out till like 5 p.m. to lender. That's like a batch processing. A batch will pick up 10 applications, whichever are sitting there, they will process together. So yeah, or at 5 p.m. So that is like a batch mode. It's not a real time mode anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. But if I submit a credit application at 10 a.m. and the same time dealer gets notification, that's the real time. Okay. So that's the difference between batch and real time. Okay. So there are obviously this is a technical document, so there will be a lot of technical information. The best thing I would suggest is Google it, some of the information, and try to spend some time on it. Maybe spend some time on, okay, what are the availability requirements or what is availability? Okay, so those type of things you can look it up on the Google.
Will you explain the tier, 3-tier and tier applications?
Remember we talked about the different architecture?
Yeah.
That's what this is talking about. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
I'm
This is
sorry.
tier,
No,
tier,
let
yeah,
me correct.
yeah.
No, this one talks about so there are standard definition within the industry in terms of if something goes wrong with the system and system goes down, how quickly you expect the system to recover and be back online. Okay. Based on that, there are bands or like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. What tier 1 just says that if a system goes down, the business requirement calls you to get the system up and running back within 2 hours. Then it's tier 1. The tier 2 is it is okay to get it as long as you can get it up by before the next business days, which is 24 hours. Tier 3, it is okay if it goes down. I can live without the system for a week, right? And each one of the tier, the lower the tier it is, the more expensive it is because you need to keep a lot of other related things up and running. So for example, right, if I have a laptop at home, right, and you say the laptop crashes and I have to get that laptop or a new laptop within 2 hours and up and running, right? Obviously, at that point, it's going to cost you more because you need something right away. Mm-hmm. Versus if you wait for something till a week and says, I can go to the further store, order it and get it next day and then use it. It's going to be most likely going to be cheaper solution, right?
So Taiwan,
that's what the intention this is based on the business criticality, what your end users are demanding that how long the systems can be afforded to be down.
So if the banking system goes down, do you think you can live without it?
No.
So you cannot take out the money or something, right?
Right.
So that has to be tier 1.
Right. And then there are a lot of times it's a 24/7 system, right? So if you're using 911, you can't afford it to go down, right? Because people's life is at stake.
Yep.
Versus my banking system went down, probably I can wait for an hour, right?
So in this case, tier 2, if I cannot apply for the loan, right? I cannot.
I can come next day and apply it.
Right. That's tier. That can be tier.
Yep.
That's the actual business outcome of those tier 2 abilities.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Okay. So I'm moving
Part
on.
of the other one, like it's right, 13 through 16 is essentially talks about more architectural constraint and how you're going to design the system and all, right?
Yep,
So
yep.
if you look into the number 12, it talks about what kind of architecture you're going to use it. Remember, we went through monolithic all the way
3-tier
to
to multi-tier. Yep.
mobile architecture, right? There were like 6 or 7 that we walked through it on last Sunday. One of them was N-tier application. That's how this pattern uses it.
Multi-tier, yeah, or N-tier. Yep.
So we do not worry about what client is asking here. I remember.
No, so remember, if I'm a client, all I care it is give my solution with the constraint that I've identifying to you. Have part that is defined by your IT systems or vendors.
Technical folks, basically.
Right. All business says what they want. Right. So,
Okay.
for example, right,
Are we
when
not
you go
supposed to
when
give
you're
them
building a house,
what
right,
they
all you
want?
just say is that you need a 3 or 4 bedroom house. You don't care how the builder builds it.
Okay. But they're asking like anticipated users to be 500, and here it only mentioned 100. Or, I mean, the numbers are, there is some discrepancy in the numbers above.
What are you talking
No, the
about?
500 was there. Actually, they bumped up the numbers here.
Okay.
See here, the 500 number, they are actually giving them 100 users. Okay, on average, they were saying 50. So they are building the system for 100 users.
Okay.
So the numbers could change in the design because they determine, okay, because so that's the reason you are not focusing on the non-functional requirements because it's a little bit technical in nature. Okay. And it could change when they are designing the system. Some of the things might change.
Right.
Now you can ask a question, why it's change? But
Yeah,
then
because
the developers will say, yep, because we had a discussion with the business and this is what we're going to build for. Even though they asked for 50, we are building the system for 100.
Right. Because a lot of times business tells you there is some discussion around what is your growth, right? You don't want to build a system that essentially gets outdated within 6 months. Right. So business may say, hey, to start with it, we want 50 users. So that's what they put in the requirement, right? When you do the conversation, right, then it's okay, you're going to start with 50 users. Great, we can build that. But then what is your projected growth for a year, 2 year, 3 year down the road, right? And if it's a more easier and convenient to provide that projected growth at the same cost, that's where you're going to see the design is going to do that.
So that falls under the scalability, right?
Right. Well, there are all the different non-functional requirements, right? So that's a false set.
Yeah.
So even though you just say, hey, I'm a tier 2, which requires 24 hours to restore it, by definition, a lot of clouds, they provide you capability to be up within the matter of minutes, right?
Okay.
So by the nature that you are deploying the solution in the cloud, you're going to provide a higher availability and a higher tier to your end customer than what they have asked it already. Right. So that's what this is. Some of those things are about.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Think around it, right? You ask a 1-bedroom house, and the builder says, at the same price, I can build you a 3-bedroom house. You're not going to say no, right?
yeah.
That's what this is.
Okay. So I would suggest you read some of these things. Some of these things are technical in nature, but hopefully that will give you some more information about the solution or the application that is being built. But if you have any question, that we can dive into those sections. But I think you're gonna find some similarity in the diagrams of what they're putting together and what you saw in the context diagram and other things. See, as I said, these are technical in nature, so it talks about how the users are accessing the system over the internet and where the server's gonna be and all other things. What authentication mechanism they are using, what are some of the process IDs or some of the accounts they will be using. and so forth. So some information you can ignore, some information you can leverage to understand. Now this talks about the application context diagram. This is a little bit technical in nature, but it's very similar to what information flows in to the system and what comes out, like reports, notifications, approvals, rejections, and so forth. Technical functional composition diagrams, they have it, which talks about the various components they need to build. Okay, so there is nothing you can do here from the QA standpoint other than trying to understand how they are trying to build the system. So they have data concern, logical data model. This is similar to what you saw in the requirements document. And then they will dive into the actual entities or tables and other things. Now here, the important part is all the entities has to be detailed and all the elements needs to be accounted for. So what you saw in the requirement, there are some elements they might have eliminated, but here you're gonna find all the detailed ones because this is the one they will implement in the system. These are all the different data elements they will require. So in order to create a user, what information I need? So I need all this information. In order to create a dealer in the system, what information I need? I need all these different data elements. Okay, same thing with the lenders, same thing with the note. So we saw that one of the requirement that they need to be able to, user needs to be able to enter note while they create a dealer, but where the note is stored in the note entity or table, basically, and how they're planning to store it. And I think this is the credit application entity. So what you saw in that form, now they have laid out actual what are the required fields, what data type they are going to assign to each field, and how they plan to store the information. So here you probably will see like about 200 elements for credit application. Okay, so still credit application here, or maybe more than 200, I think. Yep. So in order to create a credit application, I need to supply all this information. Or in order to submit a credit application, I'm going to need all this information. Any question on the elements or data entities or anything inside this section? It's important for you to understand what data elements, because it's going to help you to build out the test data or data during the testing. Okay, so that's the reason I'm mentioning it here. And we will talk about it as we go to start building out the Q artifacts, probably week number 3, session 3. Okay, some of the integration concerns, as I said, this is some of the technical in nature, but there is some interaction with the email system. It could be Google, Gmail, Hotmail, whatever. But when this new credit application is created, email needs to go out to the dealer and lenders, right? Those things. Some of the action happens. So they identify what is the trigger for the email notification. And finally, this is the architecture diagram. They have it, multi-tier or n-tier. I think Dilip explained last week about the n-tier. It's similar to that. And this is important diagram for you to understand how they log in and how they access certain functionality, some of the actors or roles. So how the dealer user will log in and what things they can do in the system. Same thing with the site admin, same thing with the lender user, and so forth. So I think this is a good diagram to have it, understand it, and digest it. Okay. And finally, some approval signatures that they typically have it in the document. On this design document. Okay, I take it as no.
So
Go ahead.
we also ask the required column in this table. In these tables, all the required column we question it here, or
No, these are they already marked. So here you don't provide input. You
Oh.
read the document. You try to understand how they are planning to build it. If you find discrepancy, yes, you can bring it up to developer. But generally, this document is probably weighted by architects, designers, technical folks. So unless you really have an input, you really identify defect, there will not be input from the QS on this document. Because they might have their own reasons to why certain things are required versus not required.
so we'll just ask and know why or why not.
You can ask for why or why not, but
no changing. So
yeah, they may not
not
change
going
it.
to change
Yep,
anything.
because it's a technical team owns that. So there is a different responsibilities for different things, right? Now, if you clearly see discrepancy within the document, yes, you need to bring that up. Like we talked about 50 users versus 100 users. Why is that? And they will explain you.
Yes. So think around it, right? If you want to build a house, right, and a contractor comes in, you are the one who is defining what you want in the house or not, right?
Yes.
Contractor can ask you, hey, why do you need this, to understand better why you're looking for it, right? But
So
contractor
will
is
be
not
the
going to tell you,
contractor
no,
first?
you can't have 3-bedroom, you can have only 2-bedroom,
Okay.
right? Same way, business users are specifying what they want. You can ask about why you want to understand the context of what the purpose of that is, but you can't just tell them, no, you can't get that or you can't get that, right? You may just say, if you want that, it's going to cost you more, and then they will decide whether they want that or not.
But from the QA standpoint, you're probably not going to have that discussion because it's owned by business analyst, right? So you will work with the business analyst or product owner or whoever, and basically help them communicate with the business users. If you clearly find the discrepancies or some issues, yes, you should bring that up for the requirements.
Okay, if I see any redundancies or some
Right. Your
required
purpose
that
is
is
to
not
make
marked, I can go to the business analyst.
Yep.
Precisely. Right. Your purpose is to make sure you understand what user wants it, so that you can validate that the system performs those capabilities.
Okay.
Remember, your role is quality assurance, QA. You are not defining the requirements. You are not documenting that, but your job is to identify the discrepancy and any issues that may arise.
Okay. Just yeah.
Right. It's a different role. I mean,
right, and understand it from my point of view.
Yep. Understand so that you can come up with the quality assurance activities because that's your main role. So you need to have that, but you need to understand the document so that you can test it and come up with the QA artifacts.
So would QA be making any tables or data charts or diagrams or anything, or just
From the quality
look and point
assurance standpoint? Yes. No, from QA standpoint, you will have to come up with the reporting. How many? I think we'll talk about on next class. Dilip will go over that. What from QA standpoint? What are the reporting things that you need to keep track of for your activities? But that has nothing to do with the functionality.
Okay.
It's mainly communicating with the teams and the business and everybody else.
Okay. We don't come up with diagrams.
I would just say you don't come up with your own requirements.
Yes, that's correct. That's
okay.
correct.
But you can come up with whatever artifacts you needed in order to understand what a user wants it.
Okay. Got it.
So I have a question. Will there be any situation in a company that QA has to go through these documents in real, like while you're working in a company as a QA?
Every day. When you start on the project, they will hand you, this is a smaller document that you are starting out with. Typically, it's a 200-page, 500-page document. They will give you a week and you have to digest it.
Wow.
So, but this it builds on the pattern, depending on whether it's a waterfall versus agile.
Yeah,
So, but
okay.
you will still have some time to digest, understand the requirements. Because essentially, user stories they talk about in agile, which are nothing but requirements. But you need to come up to speed.
Okay. Okay.
Every project will have these requirements.
Requirements. Okay.
Yes.
So every project. So will there be like a project per day, or like every day different projects, or
No, you might be assigned to I have seen normally between 2 to 4 projects.
per day?
Yeah,
Not
per
per
day.
day.
It's
So think
over 1 year period. You on simultaneously you might be working on minimum 1
Okay.
to maximum 3 to 4 projects. So you will
Okay.
have different requirements document to suffer through. But
yeah.
initially you will be assigned only 1 or 2, not more than that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
think around this, right? It took how many hours? Let me ask a question. How many hours you spend reading the document?
I would say it took me a day, one full day.
1 full day,
8
right?
hours.
So
Okay.
if they change
I'll
your
say 8
project
hours.
every day, right? All you will be doing is just reading the documents, nothing else. Right?
Okay.
And your job is not just to read the document. Your job is to read the document, understand it,
Okay.
build the test cases,
Okay.
test the system. Right? So as Herschel pointed out, you may be working on 2 different projects at the same time.
Okay.
But each one of the project may take it anywhere between 1 month to 2 or 3 years.
Okay. 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 So 2 project, 2 documents.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
It's again, that's an example, right? A lot of times in a big corporations, right, you may just see it as depending on the current status of the, if it's an actively built application, then most likely you're going to work only on one application. But if you're working on an application that is in a maintenance mode, then you may be working on a multiple application at the same time. Okay. Because the amount of the work is not significant in each one of those applications.
Yeah, so size of the application definitely. Yeah, if it's a small to mid-size application, you will definitely work on multiple projects. If it's a large application, you might be assigned dedicated BA or QA for that application. So might be just one. But you need to have the complexity adds up when you have a large application. So
okay. Okay. So we just have to get used to with this document, right? Keep reading.
this type of requirements. Understand how the business. The whole purpose of this document is to give you the clear picture of what needs to be built, what users are going to use the system, and how they are planning to use the system. Because you need to wear each user's hat and test it before the actual users start using it. Okay, so we haven't gone through the actual activities that you need to do, but right now we are focusing on, okay, what needs to be built. So we are just focusing on that part only,
Okay.
so that you understand what are the requirements and get familiar with that. So as we go, I think next 3 weeks, I think it will be a lot more clear what you need to do as a QA and day-to-day basis.
Usually in real time, how many QA will be working on for a single project? There'll be
It
multiple
again
or just
depends
one?
on the project and so forth. Yeah,
Side.
but I mean nationwide, I in my team I had 50 QAs. So it depends on the project size and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, but in the some of the consulting firms that or clients, we had like 2 QAs, 3 QAs, or maybe just 1 QA for one project type of thing.
Okay.
So it varies.
Okay.
So question,
Yes.
on the joint applicant position, when you see the decimal, does it mean approximation of the amount or what?
Yeah, it's a fractional amount, right?
Okay.
Monthly income can be whatever, right?
Okay.
1050 or 1050.50 or 49.
Okay.
Who cares, right? So it needs to allow the decimal or fractional amounts.
Okay.
That's the reason it's a decimal.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
To work applications.
What is that, Tom? Is Thomas or? All right. Any other question on these things? Okay, I think so. We are almost at the time. We are almost reaching 8:30 here. So here is what we like you guys to do. So I think a good thing about this time around this camp is we are giving you more time to digest the information. So you have another week to read through and digest the information. But don't wait till next Thursday again or next Friday, because starting next week, it will go very fast.
Oh,
Okay, next Sunday, not this Sunday, coming Sunday, but the Sunday after that, things will fly out. Okay, because we're gonna use. You need to understand this document, these documents, functionalities, and other things in order to go to that level. So you got a week to digest. So I would put out the video what we discussed here. Plus you have the older video. Yeah, go through either of those. Try to read the document again. Try to create a picture of how the system is being built, and get ready for the future sessions.
Do we have to do anything else before Sunday?
No. This is it. Yeah, we are not giving you any other homework because this is the important one.
Okay.
so you're gonna continue from module 3, right? So we
Yes.
finished module 2. Okay.
Yep. That's right. All right.
So
yeah.
just to make sure I understand the assignment, we're still supposed to read the 2 documents again by next week. That's what we're supposed to do,
Again,
right?
meaning I would suggest now you have the understanding of the structure of the document based on our discussions, right? So maybe try to understand from the features functionality standpoint. Try to understand the requirements, how the requirements are laid out, and those things, and get more understanding basically. So if you have to read twice, go and do that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty then. No other question. Then I think we can wrap up the our session here.
What will be you'll be teaching on Sunday? Just
Sunday we'll be covering additional various testing types, and there are a lot of 3, 4, and 5 module 5. I think, Philip, right?
Yeah. So we'll talk about the test plan, what it means.
Test plan. Yep.
We will talk about different types of testing. That's what we'll talk about it. Okay, so we'll get you ready to say it's all the necessary information required you to start saying that if I have to test this requirements document, how I'm going to test about it. So we're going to lay the groundwork around the foundation of what it means, what are different types of test means, so that we can go ahead and get started building those things for us.
Yep, that would be the session number 3. So no more theory. I think after this week, it's
session
probably
2 is as I mentioned, right? The first 2 session is going to be heavy in getting the foundational information ready. In session 3 onwards, we're going to start doing the actual work.
Yeah, 40% theory, 60%, or I would say 30-70 in class work. You guys will be doing artifacts in the class 70% of the time going forward.
So do we have to bring our computer from?
We'll let you know. We'll let you know. But no, it's still gonna be paper-based exercise on session number 3. All right. So not till like session 4, but depending on how fast you go, and we'll let you know.
Okay.
Alrighty then. I think we can wrap up then. Here. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay,
We'll see you on
All right.
Sunday. Right, sharp at 8:45. Okay. Those who are
Okay.
coming.
Harris, I have a question. Like, where should I join the Zoom class for this?
Same link.
Same
link that you are.
same
Yeah,
ID
yeah,
and
same link.
password?
Yep. Same
Okay.
thing. Yep.
Okay.
No different. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay, great.
So we can attend on Zoom instead of coming.
So
No,
I will-
if you, I mean, I would prefer you guys will be here, session number 3 onwards. I mean, those who are, who can make it, definitely be here, session number 3 onwards. If you wanna stay home, I mean, next session, that's fine. But I would strongly suggest session number 3 onwards, because it will be more productive for you. If
Okay.
you are in the
Your
in the
learning will
classroom.
be more effective if you're
Yeah.
in person than you're on the Zoom.
Understood.
So, because we, as you see, I mean, we have a lot of discussion in the classroom. Certainly, online folks can ask a lot of questions as well. But we have not seen that so far, because it's a little bit theoretical, but I think it will be more hands-on starting number session 3. So if you can make it, I would strongly encourage you guys to come in the classroom.
Okay.
All right. Okay, great. Have a good evening then. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Harry.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye,
All right.
everyone.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye.
See you on
Bye-bye.
Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah.